Thanks.
Yelena, we don't want to keep you forever, I promise. Are you okay with a couple more questions?
I'm okay. You can ask me any questions. I'm
Amen. We
enjoying
really appreciate it. This is Forrest. Forrest, come on.
Hello, I'm a parishioner from Saint Anthony's. First, I wanted to thank you for creating this film. I remember when I first watched it, in the first couple minutes actually of the film, a lot of the films I'd seen before were they were like under budget films, but this one, the cinematic and all of it was there, and it moved into appreciating it for that, and then for, as was mentioned before, all these subtle ways in which we can experience the implicit grace as from an audience perspective of Nektarios. One of the things that stuck out to me were scenes like the interaction he had with the president, where he said he was innocent, and then he says, "I'm sure you are," and he leaves.
Yeah.
Then he's just gracefully, like, slowly shuts the door instead of. And in the audience, I was upset. I was like, "Slam that door!" And he sort of just shuts the door patiently. And throughout the film, also, I had a question about. There were a few scenes where there were interactions. Were these taken from context that he had, like doing research, like in specific, the ending scene where he's talking about the man who was like a paraplegic? He was talking about how his circumstances and how they were having an interaction basically where he's forced to do that, and Saint Nektarios had said most people should ask that question. It was like sort of this existential question.
That scene was written by me. That scene doesn't exist anywhere. This is.
I really appreciate that. This is a good scene.
Yeah. The truth was that there was a man there. We don't know what they talked about, if they talked. And the truth is that man was there. He was paralyzed. There were actually two of them in the room, but for the purpose of the film, there was no need to, there were two patients. The room is still there, it's still in Athens. You can actually go and visit. And wow. the bed where Saint Nektarios passed away is still there. So there were two other beds. So there was one patient next to him who was paralyzed, waist down. And that patient, after, this is all true, after he when they were changing him, the nuns were changing after he died, they threw an undershirt on him, and the guy walked up and he was walking. He got healed from being paralyzed. So that is a true story. But it was me who wrote the scene because I thought it would connect the story really well, and it's relevant to the story we were telling.
Yeah, I like that scene. One more question with was it the same actor the entire time? Because at some point he got very old and very realistically older. Is that still the same? Okay, we've come a long way with makeup.
Yeah.
To be more conservative. Thank you.
He was 74 when he died. Yeah. He was 74. No, actually, with the makeup, they were trying to tell me to age him even more, but I was kind of saying, no, let's do this very gradually, because to make it more natural looking, they wanted to. I'm like, I don't want to, like, all of a sudden, you see him 5 minutes later and he's like, looks like somebody else, so I actually put my foot down, and the only time we used the prosthetics was in that last scene. And I think the one before where he was already 74, so okay, he has to look different than when he looked like when he was in his late 40s. But other than that, we aged him with with the makeup, with the gray hair, which I think it was more appropriate than to do some crazy special effects, because I think that would not be real, and it could have taken away from the story.
Yelena. Oh, good. Oh, go, yeah, please.
To kind of go off what Forrest was asking about, what in your process of writing the script, where did you begin with research? Because all of the people that were there, like Saint Nektarios was real, Kostas was real, everyone, they were real people. Like, how were you able to find resources to create dialogue and scenes between these people?
Yeah, well, dialogues are I had to, everything that you've seen is real, in the sense dialogues are not anywhere, because that's something that me as a writer have to create. But I had so much resource. You have many books written on him. Then you have like hours and hours of like talks about Saint Nektarios. Then what really helped me more than anything were like first 134 letters that he has written to the nuns. And then after the consultant on the film, His Eminence Metropolitan Cleopas of Sweden, he's the one who wrote the best. He included like, I don't know, 2,000 letters, something ridiculous. All the correspondence that Saint Nektarios had between him and his peers, the superiors, his spiritual children. And that's where I was able to see who he really was, more than anywhere else. And all the books, all the stories that you have seen, they're pretty much well known. They've been written out in books, they're on the internet and stuff. It was up to me to connect this, make the real human story, like Costas. Okay, all we know, he was his assistant, but we knew that he was somebody who stayed even after that. He was slightly, he was always worried about him. So to me, it was like a perfect example of a person who is a good person, but still worldly, not a saint. Like he still doesn't understand what it means. Hey, let God's will be done, and it's okay. He was a wonderful man who helped Saint Nektarios. He was his companion until the end of his life, and after that, he stayed with the nuns and helped them. Then you had many different, like for example, directors of the school, but I decided to have one. You cannot have changed 5 directors. But in general, he always headbutted with authority, not because he was headbutting with them, but the authority didn't like him because he was very simple, and he, how it is, like the same way in Egypt, when they did not like him because to be one of them, he then couldn't be so good. He couldn't help the poor. He couldn't, he had to worry. He would have to want to be a patriarch, which is not something that he aspired to do, right? Then afterwards, even in school, he had a lot of conflict. Actually, the committee, there were 3 members of committee. Of course, you couldn't put all 3 of them, but in a movie you can. So it's very truthful. I mean, it's maybe not exactly every detail, but there's nothing that it's untruthful about the story that was told. It's pretty much like that, as what you saw. Just I brought it to life with the dialogue, with the situations, and making it flowing and accessible to my in the sense that the film has a drama and conflict, and so it's not something that you just watch from the outside. And my work is from inside out. That's very much how I work as a filmmaker, whether I direct or write, and that's how St. Moses the Black will be done. So can you imagine if I can pull that off?
I'm very excited to see that film, and
that's gonna be a heavy one.
And then that was a great question. I have a question I should piggyback off of that, and it's what the question I wanted to ask from the very beginning. What I'm very curious about is, were there any scenes that you wanted to include, maybe even filmed, but ultimately had to be cut and left on the editor's
Absolutely.
floor? Can you tell us about that?
45, it was 2.5 hours of footage, an hour and 45 minutes stayed on the screen. And that's usually what directors that care about the story, not about their own ego. Like, sorry to say that, but yeah, sometimes the director can be in love with the scene, but the scene doesn't support necessarily the flow of the movie. Then you have to let go of that scene. I mean, that's why many times you see films, for example, you see one great scene, but then after you sleep for another 10 minutes and then another scene shows up, and that's when the director is just thinking about this great scene. No, the scene has to move the story forward. And that's something that I've learned. That's why I say I'm very grateful that I was able to study with the best, because people like Elia Kazan, like Sidney Lumet, like John Huston, they all came out of that school, and then if you watch their movies, one is better than the other always, and not every film is going to be the same, but there is the storytelling is good. They're not going to leave a scene in there just for the sake of the scene, to enjoy the scene. You're going to pretty much go through the story, and you're going to be captured by the story, and that's the most important thing. Yes, so I was able to let go of that and focus on telling the story.
Yelena, I had a question for you during the making of the film. What scene do you think illustrated Saint Nektarios the most?
what scene that illustrates Saint Nektarios the most? That would be something I would have to think about now. It's not, I was thinking in terms of, for me, every scene was important. The premise of this story, of this particular, you can tell 10 different stories about Saint Nektarios, and each one of them can be very well told. One of my main premises was that the desire for power and riches destroys human soul. That was one of the main premises of my film, the film I was telling. And so if in every frame of the movie that was there, that was present, I was focusing on that. Obviously, his humility is incredible. I mean, I think what people, I'm going to go by what other people were saying, that they really like the moment when he points to the sky, which wasn't really, that's what those that know more about sanctity than I do. And they seem to like that. They seem to say, well, that represents him, somebody of that stature the most. I may be seen with the kids, but he's selfless washing the toilets, but in general, I put that, but mainly it was this, the story that you have this man who was so selfless and who was always in conflict with the establishment, so his character came through conflict, and you could see who he was by how he reacted to everything around him. I also liked, I mean, looks like people also liked the moment when Costas told him that if, and I think that's probably one of the, if I were to say what's one of the more important moments in the film, is when Costas tells him, if that happened to me, what happened to you, I wouldn't go to church anymore. And when he says, well, woe to me if my fate depends on men. And I think this is probably, in my opinion, to me at least, the focal point of the film, and what the main message behind that film is, and it shows who he was. He never gave up on his faith. Faith is something else. He, regardless of what was done to him and how terrible it was, he was with God, and he never doubted that. So that shows right there, and is that bad? Not to mention, I mean, when the scene at the end when the guy walks, that's somewhat of a metaphor. It's a true story, but it's a metaphor for resurrection. That we don't die, we live, and especially if we live like Saint Nektarios, then we will not die. We'll be with the Lord forever.
Yelena, I can hear your voice is starting to go, and I know it's been a lot. I just want, can we all just kind of say thank you? Did you appropriate comment to sing many years?
Yeah.
As a blessing. Would you mind if we sang for you really quick?
Yes, of course.
Amen.
I wouldn't mind. Well, then I have to stand up as well. Hold on. I cannot be sitting. Sorry. You're gonna be seeing
it's okay.
a very weird angle here.
Sorry. Great.
Grant to the Lord prosperous life, health, salvation, produce all good things, your servant of God, Yelena, and grant her many years. God grant you many years. God grant you years. God grant you many. May God bless you and continue to bless the works of your hands. Thank you so much for what you've done.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your prayers and your blessings.
So Yelena, we're gonna, well, I haven't told anybody this, but we're gonna come together tonight. We're gonna see how much money we can pull together, and we'll make a donation. And we're very appreciative. And next time you're in San Diego, please stop by and visit us.
Yeah,
Absolutely. It'll be my great pleasure. I promise.
Amen.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.